Everyone is wondering if there will be justice for Ahmaud Arbery. The defense teams for Travis and Greg McMichael and William Bryan rested their case today after 2 days of testimony. They called 7 witnesses, including Travis McMichael, the man who actually pulled the trigger killing Arbery. Closing arguments are expected to begin on Monday. And joining me now are criminal defense attorneys Gerald Griggs and David Otunga. Thank you both for staying with us tonight. Gerald, I'll start with you. Did the defense prove self-defense?
Well, of course, in a criminal case, the defense does not have to prove anything. But I think in this case, by offering evidence, they failed to prove self-defense. Particularly Travis McMichael's statements on cross-examination were just a debacle. He admitted that he was never trying to arrest Mr. Arbery, which destroys the citizen's arrest argument. And he also admitted on cross-examination that he fired the shot before Mr. Arbery got up close to him. And so that particular shot was the shot ultimately the medical examiner said was the shot that killed Mr. Arbery, even though he continued to fight. So I think it's a very hard self-defense case to prove. I think that the defense has not proven that particular case. And then by putting him up and opening him up to cross-examination, it really did harm not only to his case, but the other 2 defendants that were there as well. So I think that the defense did not prove their case, and I think that this is going to be the type of case that shows why you don't put your client up.
So David, Travis McMichael was the first witness called by the defense, and he was on the stand for the better half of yesterday and today. How do you think he held up?
That's just it. He didn't hold up well at all. I think that he sunk this case. The thing of it is, this case turns on self-defense. So the defendant has to take the stand because he has to explain certain elements. He has to explain that he reasonably believed his life was in danger. Therefore, the use of deadly force was authorized. Well, on cross-examination, he completely fell apart and admitted that he did not fear for his life, and in fact, that Ahmaud Arbery was never an imminent threat to him. So right there, self-defense is out the window. I don't know what the defense is going to do after this because that was their whole case. That was it.
So Gerald, so then neither Greg nor William took the stand. So why do you think the defense didn't put them up?
I think they saw how Linda Dunikowski took apart the defendant so meticulously that they did not want to risk their clients being put in the same posture. I think that the cardinal mistake that they made was putting your client up without effectively preparing him for the cross examination. This particular cross examination took 2 days. And so when you get an opportunity to get the defendant up on the stand and you go through his testimony, you go through his statements over and over again, and you back him into a corner, this is what happened. And so they saw that happen. They didn't want to risk any more damage, so they cut their losses, and that's why the other 2 defendants didn't testify.
David, what do you think? Do you think it was a good idea not to call them up to the stand?
For the other 2, well, I think that it went so poorly. Yeah. I think they should have at least, taken the stand. For one thing, Roddie, Bryan, I mean, this is the guy who had the best chance of being acquitted because he doesn't really know the McMichaels. He just joined in on this chase and tried to corner Ahmaud, but they didn't talk about this beforehand. So he was the only one that had some legs to stand on. They were very little legs, but he had some legs. The issue with him, though, is he's the only one who can corroborate the racial slur that Travis McMichael allegedly said, and that was keeping that out. I actually think the reason that Roddie Bryan didn't take the stand was he took one for the team, because had he taken the stand, he's now opened up to be cross-examined by that, and that racial slur comes in, and that's game over.
Yeah, let's talk about that racial slur. The defense asked the judge to keep the state from asking McMichael whether he used the N-word after shooting and killing Arbery, and the attorney argued that it was not, quote, proper to ask that question at this point, given there is no admissible evidence of that. David, what are your thoughts, your reaction to that?
So that was what I was alluding to previously. The only evidence that Travis McMichael said that or used this racial slur was from Roddie Bryan himself, who made a statement to the police. So that's what they mean by there's no evidence, because it comes from one of the defendants. And if he had taken the stand, all this comes in. So I really believe that was the decision. And, it came down to it. Should we let him take the stand or just have him sit here? And they made the decision not to put Roddie Bryan on the stand and just to completely rest their case, which personally I was shocked by it. I don't think that they've,
Yeah.
poked any, or I don't think they've proven their case for self-defense at all.
So, Gerald, I want to ask you about Kevin Gough, the attorney representing William Bryan, because he asked the judge again to remove prominent black pastors from the gallery. And today that included Reverends Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. The judge denied the motion again. Gough insists that these pastors will influence the jury, but isn't he the one who's just giving attention to the reverends who are just sitting in the courtroom?
Absolutely. And I think his strategy is to put enough issues up for appeal that he may be able to win on appeal. I think he missed a very important part of his defense. He should have put his client up on the stand to show that his client did not coordinate any of this with the other two co-defendants. He should have tried to exonerate his client and not been a part of a team effort, because the team effort with the McMichaels is going to get his client a life sentence. So I think Mr. Gough needed to focus more on the defense of his client and not the individuals that were in the gallery. The statements by Mr. Gough are the reason those individuals are in the gallery. And so I think that with this particular case, he did his client a grave disservice by one, focusing on the gallery, and by two, not focusing on the defense, which is slightly available that he was not a part of the conspiracy to kill Ahmaud Arbery. He will probably get convicted of false imprisonment if he had taken the stand, but not the conspiracy which led to party to a crime of murder. So I think he made grave tactical errors that's going to cost his client.
So, David, what do you think about those repeated motions to remove black pastors? Was it about trying to make it seem like a distraction to get a mistrial? Are they threatened by the power and influence of them?
I think it was all part of Kevin Gough's plan. I mean, that's what this guy is doing. The whole time, he's been trying to preserve the record and say certain things that he can bring up on appeal or go for a mistrial, you name it. And it's exactly what you said. Had he not made such a big deal about this, people may not even know that they were there. But the point of it was for him to make a big deal about it. They were sitting in the back quietly, not bothering anybody. But Kevin Gough, he's all up in arms about this and repeatedly making these motions, knowing the judge is going to shut him down. But it's just to preserve the record and to open up the possibility of, I don't know, some argument that he could fashion for on appeal.
Yeah, we'll see where that gets them. All right, gentlemen, thanks to both of you, criminal defense attorneys Gerald Griggs and David Otunga. Appreciate your time tonight.